Hey y'all, it's Kim again. So this is part two of page 13 of the JFK Files. There's two documents that had quite a bit of reading that had to be done, so that's why I split it up into two, just so I don't get cut off or something in the middle, because that's been happening lately. For whatever reason, my stupid internet is giving me trouble. But anyway, let's get started on this. So it says Secret Dispatch Chief Western Hemisphere Division, Attention Chief WH1, Chief WHMH Spawn, and then Chief of Station, Mexico City Operational LI Anchor Progress Report for December 1967 through May of 1968. Action required is none. Just an FYI. References A HMMA 3360, December 13th of 1968, and then B is Mexico City 5688, 25th of May 1968. It says summary. During the reporting period, the LI Anchor Leftist Writer Press Service produced 35 individual articles and serialized political feature articles, which were distributed to 20 newspapers throughout Latin America and are known to have been published regularly by at least 12 newspapers. Despite this acceptable production rate, the project has not achieved the objective set for it by the Mexico station and in the project outline. Prior to submissions of a project renewal request in late June of 1968, the Mexico station will attempt to convert the LI Anchor operation into more effective and politically more leftist operation. 4 of 6 LI Anchor press service riders will be dropped, and the LI in luck will be replaced, hopefully, by Identity One, a respected independent leftist Mexican editorialist for the prestige center left daily Excelsior. If by the end of June 1968, the operational uh, mechanism of LI Anchor, a cooperative and self supporting press service, not subsidized by WO firm, does not seem operationally viable. The LI Anchor project renewal request will be submitted as an administrative and financial roof project for the individual handling and exploitation of singleton leftist writer assets. Let's look back at something real quick. Okay, attachments, identities, translation, article, handbill, brochure, open letter. Okay, I just wanted to see what that had on there. Intelligence production. One information report was disseminated in May of 1968 based on information acquired by LI in Luck. Operational developments, formal organization of LI Anchor Press Service. The reference A project proposal reports all significant incidents in the development of the LI Anchor Press Service by L in Luck. LI in Luck in the Mexico station through the first week of December 1967, while LI in Luck set about bringing together the candidates for membership in the cooperative press service. Its headquarters will recall the project involved paying a salary of US $700 per month to LIN Luck in in return for which he was to persuade a number of leftist and center left writers to join together as contributors to the LI Anchor Identity 2 press service. The contributing writers or members of the press service were to agree to waive fees for a trial period during which the press service was to develop paying clients among Latin American newspapers and periodicals. LI and Luck held 3 meetings of candidate members of the press service during December in the home of Identity 3. The meetings were unruly, but everyone at the meetings agrees to contribute material to the press service and submit to editing and control of the material by Ellen Luck. And then, however, what with the 20-day Christmas festivities, which paralyzed all Mexicans from 15th of December to 5th of January of each year, none of the LI Anchor members, other than Identity 4, submitted his manuscript to Ellen Luck until late January. LIN Luck dusted off the best and most timeless of his fall 1967 articles and mailed them out with the prospectus to newspapers suggested by third country stations throughout Latin America. At the end of December, LIN Luck became seriously ill, and the project was dormant until mid-January. In the latter part of January, he held a sober business meeting of the LI Anchor press group at his home, and by the end of January, the members began to submit manuscripts. The search for a replacement for LIN Luck was formally terminated in the summer of 1968. He spent much of his termination bonus on sending his family back to France. The wife is French, and setting the family up there in an apartment and placing his sons in school. Following the termination, LIN Luck was again placed on salary while W.O. Firm subsidized the publication of a book which he had written in support of whatever this is right here that's cut off. While the book sold well in Mexico and in South America, accepted the book but would not send LIN Luck his share of the sales, which was to be used to repay W.O. Firm the cost of publishing the book. In late fall of 1967, LIN Luck spent 6 weeks in Guatemala, where he reached agreement with the Guatemalan Defense Minister, Rafael Arriaga Bosque, whereby the Defense Ministry was to pay LIN Luck US $4,000 for the right to publish 10,000 copies of his first book. The US $4,000 was to be paid by LIN Luck to W.O. Firm as partial reimbursement of the cost of publishing the J.M. Rod book. During the visit to Guatemala, LIN Luck was told by Arriaga and Guatemalan government officials that he could expect a consular appointment by the summer of 1968. Headquarters in the Mexico station were agreed that as soon as he could organize LIN Anchor and find a suitable replacement, LIN Luck should be terminated and leave Mexico. Following the receipt of the LIN Anchor, or LI Anchor told LIN, hold on, I messed up. Following the receipt of the LI Anchor project approval in early 1968, the LI Anchor case officer told LIN Luck that he was expected to find a replacement meeting W.O. Firm approval and be ready to turn the operation over to his replacement by the end of March 1968. LIN Luck proposed Identity 4, who had shown the most interest in the LI Anchor press service and had been the first to submit articles. By accident, the case officer was forced to listen to an hour's conversation between Identity 4 and LIN Luck. After Identity 4 came to LIN Luck's home, interrupted a meeting between the case officer and LIN Luck, and the case officer sat trapped in a separate room unbeknownst to Identity 4. From the conversation, the case officer observed that Identity 4 was actually a political rightist, believed LIN Luck to be an LN HARP agent, had grandiose plans for using LN HARP funds to mushroom LI Anchor into a continent-wide anti-communist movement and was married to a neurotic woman who had hired a private detective agency, to check on her husband's activities. Lin Luck was instructed to quietly uh hold on. I think it says ease identity 4 out of LI Anchor, to cease holding group meetings of LI Anchor writers, and to try to prevent further contact between Identity 4 and other members of LI Anchor. Identity 5 was selected as the next candidate to replace Lin Luck as PA. Identity 5 was technically, linguistically, intellectually, and professionally well qualified to head LI Anchor. During the period of development and assessment of Identity 4 by Lin Luck, Identity 5 wrote an excellent article on Soviet intellectual piracy. However, Identity 5 proved difficult to contact and controlled, and turned out to be leading a personal life which would have detracted seriously from his ability to administer LI Anchor. Lin Luck was told to keep in touch with Identity 5, but to look for still another candidate. In early April, Arriaga Bosque was exiled to Miami with the station's correspondence or station's concurrence. Lin Luck, whatever, went to Guatemala during Easter to confer with Guatemalan President Julio Mendez Montenegro and the new defense minister concerning his own future. The president said he had not forgotten Lin Luck, but would not be able to give him a consular post until the outset of 1969. The president also said he would not be opposed to Lin Luck's returning to Guatemala and entering politics. Upon Lin Luck's return to Mexico, he asked whether there was any possibility that he could be kept on after 30th of June 1968 for an indeterminate period as LI Anchor PA until some outside job showed up. The case officer said he would discuss the matter with headquarters, but felt that in the interest of Lin Luck's family and his own career, it was high time that Lin Luck struck out on his own. Replacements were again reviewed, and it was decided that the best candidate would be Identity 1, who had turned down membership in LI Anchor because he wanted immediate fees for anything he wrote. Identity 6 of the LI Anchor group, a friend of Identity 1, was queried as to Identity 1's personal life, and as far as can be discovered, Identity 1 lives a quiet life with his wife and family and is highly respected in Mexican intellectual circles, both as an author, editorialist, and as an independent leftist. Reference B and plans below report the station's plans for possible recruitment and subsequent utilization of Identity 1 as PA of LI Anchor, production of articles and features by LI Anchor. A separate cover attachment B contains a translation of a Lin Luck report written 1st of May 1968 on articles and feature articles produced and distributed during the period of 15th of December 1968 to 30th of April 1968. Case officer comments are included along with information about articles prepared and distributed in May. Lin Luck involvement in covert action operations targeted against Soviet poet Yevgeny Yevtushenko, March to April 1968. In March, Lin Luck drafted an open letter to Soviet poet Yevgeny Yevtushenko. I think that's how you say it. asking the Russian to use his influence to persuade the Soviet government to end the persecution of Soviet intellectuals, artists, writers, and poets. Eli and Luck managed to obtain the signature of students, professors, actors, dancers, writers, and intellectuals for his open letter, and then persuaded the publisher of his books to print thousands of copies, which were distributed by other assets of the Mexico station. A copy of the open letter was published in Excelsior on the day of Yevtushenko's arrival in Mexico for what was originally billed as a personal trip. Because of the open letter and critical press coverage of Yevtushenko's rude behavior towards the press on arriving at Mexico City Airport, the Russian embassy called a special press conference the evening of the day of the poet's arrival. At the press conference, Yevtushenko spoke with outrage of the open letter, carefully dodging a number of questions asked by the letter, and chided the signers of the letter for claiming there was absolute literary freedom in Mexico, asking how there can be freedom anywhere in the world as long as there is no freedom in Vietnam. Yevtushenko's remarks about the open letter left no doubt that he had come to Mexico as a Soviet propagandist and not as a rebel poet. Eli N. Luck also produced a handbill quoting the telegram by Soviet intellectuals to the Consultative Conference of Communist Parties, or the CCCP, at Budapest, asking for an end to Soviet persecution of intellectuals in the USSR. The handbill featured 2 pen and ink drawings of imprisoned Soviet poets, Sinyavsky and Daniel. He also arranged for the printing in Spanish of an authoritative study of incidents surrounding the Galanskov Dobrovolsky trial in a brochure form. Thousands of copies of the handbill and brochure were also distributed by station assets during, it doesn't say here, but in the open letter are submitted a separate cover attachment C to this dispatch. Costs of the printing and distribution were charged to LI Lisp X via Identity 4. Eli and Luck passed guidance material to Mexico's top female poet, Margarita Michelina, concerning Yevtushenko. Michelina published a series of professional criticism of Yevtushenko as a poor poet and opportunist in the Mexican press. In April, immediately following Yevtushenko's departure, a condensation of the Michelina critiques of Yevtushenko were published in the leftist political illustrated magazine Impacto by L.I. Lisp E. Identities 3 and 6 of the L.I. Anchor Group also published articles against Yevtushenko in the rightist daily El Sol, but the station felt the articles were too vitriolic and unobjective to be a credit to L.I. Anchor. In fact, because of these articles, the station plans to remove both Identities 3 and 7 from L.I. Anchor, for it is obvious that both persons have long since lost all traces of their former leftism and are extreme rightists. Effectiveness views on L.I. Anchor. Effectiveness by owner, director of Guatemala Daily, El Imparcial. During Eli Luck's Easter visit to Guatemala City, he was told by the owner of El Imparcial that the newspaper was only interested in publishing Eli in Luck's articles. The newspaper owner stated that Eli in Luck was a well-known personality in Guatemala and also wrote interestingly. excuse me. The owner also said that he had published one series by Identity 4 because Identity 4 was a Guatemalan, oh goodness, sorry, who at one time had been important. However, the owner pointed out that the other LI anchor writers were unknowns and did not write well. He singled out Identity 3 as being a menace to journalism because much of what she wrote amounted to libel or slander. The El Imparcial owner said that he received the newspapers El Dia of Honduras, La Prensa Gráfica of El Salvador, La Prensa of Nicaragua, La República of Costa Rica, La Estrella of Panama, and Ultimas Noticias of Caracas, and had noted that these newspapers all published LIN Lux articles, but had not, to his knowledge, published articles by any of the other LI anchors writers. What LIN Lux explained the cooperative nature of LI Anchor. The Impartial man told LIN Luck that he could never hope to solicit fees for his news service until the service became both famous and sought after. The El Imparcial owner advised LIN Luck to find writers better known in Latin America. He suggested that if LIN Luck could not afford to pay his writers' fees, he should persuade first-class writers to contribute to LIN Anchor purely for the prestige of having their material published around Latin America. Effectiveness of LI Anchor writer group and LIN Luck as a covert action production unit. LIN Luck learned quickly that it was best not to allow meetings of members of the LIN or LI Anchor Cooperative Press Group of 9 persons who belonged to the group. As of 15th of January, 3 subsequently dropped out because of differences of opinion, which developed at group meetings. In addition, LIN Luck learned that persons he had selected partly because of their leftist records, Identities 3, 4, 7, and 8, had long since ceased being leftists and were prone to submit manuscripts with text politically harmful to the image of LI Anchor. Confused political thinking and poor writing resulted in rejection of over 20 manuscripts during February to April by LIN Luck and the case officer. Rejection of manuscripts in turn angered and insulted some of the writers. The personalities and character of some of the writers have presented problems to LIN Luck in directing and developing the LIN or LI Anchor group into a productive unit. Identities 3, 5, 6, and 7, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8 had to be goaded continually by LIN Luck to turn in manuscripts on assigned themes. Both Identity 3 and Identity 7 turned out to be emotional extremists, suffering at times from deep melancholy and at other times from inexplainable rages, which were reflected in their writings. As of this writing, the station feels that the only reliable members of the group are Identity 6 and 9, who should be kept as members of the group as long as LI Anchor is run as a group cooperative press service. The unreliable but brilliant and versatile poet, writer, lexicographer, Identity 5 should be continued as a contact of LI Anchor for occasional emergency use, provided LIN Lux replacement can obtain any cooperation from Identity 5. In summary, the LI Anchor group, composed of Identities 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, has proved ineffective and not too productive, and the ineffective members should be replaced. Effectiveness of PA, LI, and LUC. The list of articles and features by LI and LUC under separate cover attachment B is by no means the measure of the agent's writing and production capability. After the agent dusted off and mailed out several of his old article series in December of 1968, the case officer instructed LI and LUC to reduce his production in ratio to the manuscripts of other LI anchor writers, which were mailed out. The case officer was concerned that LI anchor would appear to potential clients' newspapers to be primarily a vehicle for LIN Lux, lengthy political essays, in contrast to the statement in the LI Anchor prospectus. The LI Anchor was a press service combining articles on cultural, educational, economic, and social, as well as political topics by many writers. During the agent's 2 final months of service, he has been given authorization to write as much as he can on the Vietnam issue and other topics for the purpose of building up his name in Guatemala before he returns there to enter politics. While production of articles was not LIN Lux's weak point, his selection and handling of the LI Anchor press service writers appears to have been weak. He has been too long on the fringes of the foreign exile group in Mexico, and his contacts among leftists in Mexico are no longer significant. In addition, the agent appears to have gone the way of many former Latin American communists in that his theoretical solution to some of the political, economic, and social problems of Latin America can no longer be termed leftist. As a penetration of the Communist Party, LIN Luck was a singleton. Although as a former communist leader, he had experience in handling people. He has not had experience in handling sub-agents for W.O. Firm. There was evidence during the reporting period that LIN Luck was having real trouble managing his co-workers in LI Anchor. However, handicapped by the fact that he was not paying his co-workers fees or salaries, LIN Luck probably did as well as he could in controlling his co-workers. The real fault lay in his poor selection of co-workers. Effectiveness of LI Anchor articles and features. In the station's opinion, these articles, which LIN Luck wrote, were forceful and effective, but too long. The articles written by LIN Luck's co-workers apparently were ineffective to the point that they were not considered worth publishing. The Capriles newspaper chain of Venezuela apparently felt that LIN Luck's articles were well worth running, despite the fact that they had to be published in installments. The leading newspapers in each of the Central American republics appeared to believe that LIN Luck's articles merited automatic publication. It is assumed that LIN Luck's articles were published regularly in Bolivia due to La Paz station assistance. However, because no newspaper felt like paying fees to LI Anchor or answering LIN Luck's correspondence, it has not been possible to ascertain whether LIN Anchor articles have been published with any regularity in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, or Ecuador. It is too much to ask third country stations to scan the press daily for articles by 7 different people. The Mexico station has appreciated the assistance received from the Caracas, San Jose, and Guatemala city stations, which have been the principal source of the clippings of LIN Luck's LI Anchor articles submitted a separate cover, attachment B, to this dispatch. There have been no incidents of security nature hazardous to the LI Anchor project during the reporting period. Finance and support. Finance during the 1st of October to 30th of May. The LI Anchor project expenses have consisted of US $5,600 in salary payments to LI Luck or LIN Luck at US $700 per month and US $119 cost of mailing out LI Anchor articles. Support reproduction of LI Anchor articles for the mass distribution to Latin American newspapers was done by the station using a Xerox machine. Plans replacement of LIN Luck provided headquarters grants POA and Identity One accepts recruitment by the station case officer. LIN Luck will be directed to approach Identity One some 2 weeks after the recruitment. LIN Luck will tell Identity One that he has come to Identity One on the advice of Identity Six. LI Anchor member and friend of Identity One, LIN Luck, will explain that he is returning to Guatemala to seek a political career and must give up the director of LI Anchor. Because LI Anchor cannot properly be run from Guatemala, LIN Luck will describe to Identity One the problems which he has had in developing LI Anchor and in asking Identity One to take over control of LI Anchor. Will suggest that Identity One use the LI Anchor name and establish publication outlets to broaden his prestige in Latin America. Without any thought of trying to earn fees, LIN Luck will also suggest that Identity One retain Identity 6 and 9 to help fill out the service, but that he gradually try to draw in personal writer friends to definite leftist fame and persuade them to contribute to LI Anchor purely for the reward of increased prestige. Finally, LIN Luck will offer to continue to contribute material from time to time from Guatemala, which Identity One, though his good standing in the Mexican press, perhaps can publish in Mexico. If Identity One rejects recruitment, the next candidate for LI Anchor chief is Identity 10, who has already told LIN Luck that he is prepared to take over LI Anchor on a probationary basis to see whether it will enhance his reputation. The station feels that Identity 10 would be easier to recruit than Identity One. However, Identity 10 is not too well known in Mexico and is totally unknown abroad. One of Identity 10's virtues is the fact that he never formally quit the Communist Party and has done nothing to irritate the party. As economic and general reporter for Excelsior, he offers placement potential. If Identity One does accept recruitment, the station still intends to try to recruit Identity 10 as a singleton under Project LI Anchor, possibly steering Identity 10 to Identity One and the LI Anchor press service after due consideration. The station is also interested in the possibility of recruiting Identity 10 in order to send him to the World Youth Festival at Sofia, since it is believed by LIN Luck that Identity One still has access to some worthwhile contacts in Central America or Central American young communist circles. testing for indications of effectiveness to determine future direction of LI Anchor project. It is estimated that will not cost over US $200 to hire clipping services in Buenos Aires, Montevideo, Santiago, and Bogota for a 3 month trial period to test whether newspapers which receive LI Anchor material in those cities are publishing the LI Anchor material. The clipping services will be asked to watch for articles with the LI Anchor line by line, the bylines of LI Anchor writers, and the headlines or titles, which are assigned by LI Anchor to the articles mailed to the newspapers. If the clipping service test shows that newspapers or periodicals in 2 of the above cited countries are publishing LI Anchor material, station will continue to pursue the development of a small and responsive leftist writer group as one phase of the LI Anchor operation. The rationale behind this decision is that there is little justification in operating a press service, even a cheap one, with the readership limited to Mexico, Central America, Venezuela, and Bolivia. However, if the press service can acquire or has acquired readership in any 2 of the countries in 16A above, then it is felt that the total area coverage is significant and worth maintaining. Conversion of LI Anchor to temporary roof project for singleton leftist writer assets. If as a result of clipping service tests, the decision is reached not to continue development of a leftist writer group press service, LI Anchor will be converted to a roof project for the administration and funding of singleton writing agents. Identity One, if recruited, will be told to use the LI Anchor stationery and list of publishing newspapers to develop his own prestige and readership abroad, but he will not be asked to find additional writers for the press service. At the end of FY or fiscal year 1969, the LI Anchor project will be terminated as such, and its funds and such agents as have been developed under LI Anchor will be documented under Project LI Lisp E for fiscal year 1970. For William C. Curtis and separate cover attachment. Okay, these are identities. Ricardo Garibay, Eunice Odio Infante. Okay, so I guess these are just some of the people. Yeah, I'm reading all those names. Anyway, I'm gonna stop this one. That was a lot of reading. I'm gonna have to do the other one on a separate video. So there'll be 3 for part 13. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good day. Bye.